The Morness Show with hosts Syl and Beena is about to bring depth and value into your life.
Hello and welcome to Syl and Beena show about the Morness. And of course, this is our Morness show. We were not here last week and now we are back again. But you guys were watching us record it again and that was good. Good morning, Syl.
Good morning, Beena. Good morning, Beena. I'm very excited because we're going to get to one of the absolute core fundamentals of what Moreness-Culture is all about. The Moreness of personal development. And what I mean by personal development, what does it mean to you?
Personal development is having peace of being.
I mean the actual process, what is involved. You know, as a definition of personal being.
It involves a lot.
Yeah,
it involves a lot.
Yeah, like?
Of course, resistance. Of course, yes. That the part of it, the big part of it is having no ego about, letting it go. Of course, be open about those things.
Absolutely.
That what is coming new, and also having this understanding and keeping it in forefront of our consciousness that there is always more.
Exactly.
This is something very, very, very huge.
Exactly.
Yes.
Beena goes right to the heart of it. We cannot develop our person if we have an ego or too much ego. Why?
Yes.
Because you feel like, well, I already know, and even worse, the ego doesn't like to be wrong. And really, when you don't like to be wrong, you put the kibosh on learning of any kind, development, because in order to learn to grow means you got to change, which means you've got to let go of things that weren't working before. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong. It just means, well, there's a better way. But still, if you got an ego, even that could be seen as, oh, now I'm wrong. And then you don't want to look wrong, and so you don't change. It's a really sad reality. But also, the ego, the ego works against admitting and acknowledging that which isn't ideal, which isn't perfect, right? So flaws and mistakes and stuff like that. And if you can't acknowledge those, well, then you're not going to learn easily either. And development, not going to happen. So development isn't just learning. We have to distinguish here between learning and development. Typically, what we think of as learning is memorization, remembering stuff, having facts in your head. That's not what we mean by learning here. When we're talking about learning, capital L learning, as we use it in Moreness-Culture and the way of impeccability, we're talking about the development of abilities, skills, understandings, awarenesses, discernments, understandings, and most importantly, the ability to apply. It's no good having a whole bunch of ideas and facts and thoughts and understandings in your head and you don't apply it. Because without application means nothing. So personal development, right? It's growing as a person. And this doesn't mean personal development, and we see this so often on the internet. Personal development is confused with business and career success things. You can be very successful in your career. You can be a multi-billionaire and be a complete knucklehead, a complete fool, a complete jackass. And we do see that, right? Just look around. I remember way back in the 80s with Bill Gates. Now, I don't have anything against Bill Gates personally, but I used him as an example when I first spoke about stuff like this. People, I was very into that, and I discussed it with some people. And, well, what do you mean, And I said, well, think about this. Character, development of character. That's what's important. And they said, yeah, but, so I always have some, yeah, but. Anyway, so you get to the end result of it, like, what do you want? What is your ideals? What do you aspire to? What is your ambitions, etc. like this? Bill Gates was the guy at the time, because Bill Gates was like the first really super wealthy, kind of almost instant overnight wealthy billionaire, right? He came to fame very, very rapidly, and he was, for the long time, he was the richest guy in the world, and he was really seen as the model for success and all that. I said, well, would you like to be Bill Gates? Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, I'd love to be Bill Gates. So, well, if you take away the money, would you still like to be Bill Gates? Yeah,
Oh
well,
yes, yes.
no, not so much, right?
Now it's not fun.
Because Bill
Yes.
Gates at that time, even though he was the man when it came to money, he was still seen as a big nerd, right? And he
Hmm.
changed the perception of nerd to his credit, right? But initially, yeah, it was still not all that cool. Nerds have become cooler since then, and some are cool, but uh, this was not a cool idea. I said, that's my point. See, to be
Hmm.
Bill Gates, the person Bill Gates, without his money, that doesn't
Hmm.
help you. And I said, okay, yeah, but then some wise guy said, yeah, but Bill Gates is still very clever. He's still a good programmer, coder, all that. That would be really useful. Yeah, but does that mean you'd be happy? Does that mean you'd feel at ease with you? Like Beena, she said, well, I'd have peace of being. Personal development to her, the end point of that is to have peace of being. Well, would you have peace of being? Would you be able to mood manage, for instance? Would you be able to live stress free despite whatever comes your way, etc., etc.? Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Right? That's character. Skills and abilities don't necessarily make you happy. I mean, talking about skills like, I don't know, you're a good
Hmm.
carpenter, you can write fantastic songs, you can write code and programs, or whatever your skills are, a good negotiator, talker, whatever. Those skills don't necessarily make you happy. They can acquire things for you, get abilities. But, you say, yeah, but then I'll get money and I'll be happy with money. Oh, really? Look how many people have money and aren't happy. There's plenty, right? And
Hmm.
likewise, look at how many happy people there are that don't really have money, right? You don't
Hmm.
have to have money to be happy, and it's not a guarantee of happiness either. It's just a different set of problems, right? Well,
Hmm.
so, yeah, but if I was traveling so often, I said, well, what did you do about friends? What do you mean? Everybody would want to be my friend. I say, yeah, exactly. That's the problem. How do you know which one will be your genuine friends?
Hmm.
Huge problem. Huge problem, right? That doesn't sound like a really fun thing to have in one's life. Yeah? This idea
Hmm.
that, or at least just the awareness that people will be your friends not because of you, but because of what you have, what you own. That's not cool. So a different set of problems. I'm not knocking wealth. I'm not anti-wealth. I'm simply making a point that it's not all that easy and cut and dry. If you don't have real good character, right? Actually good character. We're going to go into this in a moment. Then then your wealth not going to help you, or your skills, or your abilities, or your knowledge, or whatever you know. It's not going to help you. For instance, if you don't have patience,
Hmm.
just you just almost guaranteeing yourself that you're going to be stressed, right? Because no matter how wealthy you are, you can't make time go any faster,
Hmm.
right? That's it. Things take the time that they take. Some things can't be hurried up. Yes, you can make things go quicker in terms of the ordinary world, but nonetheless, right? Even so, and also just mood management, being able to choose your moods, being disciplined, right? Being ethical,
So
all
what?
this kind of thing, right? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Beena.
I just want to ask you something, because sometimes when we go into detail, and it happens in the past also, when you go into the details and you say that, okay, personal development is not all about just holding money and, of course, being wealthy
No,
and being
nothing to do with
famous and
that.
being rich.
It's your person that's developing, so nothing to do with that, right?
But the problem with that people assume that you are saying that, okay, oh, it's all about, this is something we have, that it's all about just okay, having a good character and all. This is something, it's a confusion. People just go into either or, like, okay, oh, if I'm going to have
Right,
this, then I'm,
exactly.
yes, that's
Yeah.
the problem. So please just elaborate in just two simple sentences that what
All
you
right.
are saying,
So
not either
yeah,
or.
yeah. No, I mean, if you really are think that making lots of money is the way to go, and you have good reasons for that, justified, you still want to have good character, because you don't want to be somebody who's got lots of money and you careless, you thoughtless, or you don't care about people, you cause lots of harm. I mean, so you don't want that, right? And that's why,
Hmm.
when you have good character, regardless of where you are at, because sometimes those paths, at least as I see it mostly, those kind of paths aren't really chosen by us. We might think so, but If you don't have things working out for you, you're not going anywhere, right? And you can ask anybody who's got success in any field, whether it's now money or not, where they are, or non-success. If you really look
Hmm.
closely, most of the time people are where they are, and their actions are only a part of it. It's not the entire story. So your character
Hmm.
matters no matter what you do. It makes a difference no matter what you are doing. Yes. And it's also about your personal joy. Because at some point, all of your possessions, your skills, all of those things are not going to matter to you, right? And then you have to rely on your character. So from our perspective, from a Moreness-Culture perspective, and particularly also with way of impeccability, and I want to get onto this in a moment,
Hmm.
we are not only concerned with the here and now. Moreness says we are taking everything into account. We don't know what will happen with after death, if there is an after death. There may be nothing, but there might also be something. We don't know. So from a strategic point of view, part of our character is thinking strategically. In other words, looking ahead. It's a character thing to say, I'm not just going to be careless and not bother and that. I want to take everything into account. So I'm going to live in such a way that should there be something, I'm good. I'm also going to live in such a way that should there be nothing after death, it won't matter because I'm going to get the benefit now. Good character gives me benefits every single moment of every single day. Plus, it has the extra benefit of should there be some other kind of reality, some other kind of life, or even a repeat, well, whatever there is, my character is still going to benefit me. I don't care what reality you have, having patience, having integrity, having been able to be disciplined, being able to apply, things like that. Can help you anyway, right, Beena? No matter what's the
Yes,
reality.
but
So there's
yes.
always the
So,
benefit there.
so what I'm understanding, what you are saying is that uh, having any kind of power in terms of money, in terms of wealth, in terms of success, any kind of power, always need before that. Having before that, you have to have
Exactly.
impeccability, understanding
Yeah,
of
which is
impeccability,
character.
understanding of
Correct.
appropriateness.
Correct.
Otherwise, it is going
Correct.
to be very brutal,
Right.
and we will have so
Right.
many big
Right.
events in our life.
Right. The most corrosive power, ability thing in the world is power. Right? If you don't have
Yes.
character, power is just going to eat you up and corrupt you. And it's going to be your
Hmm.
downfall, as we've seen time and time and time again all throughout history, right? And this is
Yeah.
why character is so crucial. You cannot actually enjoy and benefit from what you really, really want if you don't have character. Now, you
Hmm.
can get all the things that you want, but if you don't do character first, then it's no good, right? And that was actually Bill Gates was very helpful because at that stage I was looking. He came right up as I was in that era. I'm looking as what to do with myself, which way to go, and
Hmm.
there were a lot of paths, and I said no. If I any kind of success or that that is not the first priority. The first priority is character development. Then if that's your path and you're going to end up there, then you'll be in a position to make use of it and utilize it and do it appropriately. But I want to come back to the connection to Moreness-Culture. That's our main focus. What is Moreness-Culture? Moreness-Culture is a culture, an environment, a community where those who participate and are into Moreness-Culture, they
Hmm.
are there because personal development is important to them. Right? It is what
Hmm.
sets it apart from other cultures. You've
Hmm.
got all sorts of cultures. I mean, you've got like musicians cultures and business cultures, and then you've got our traditional cultures. But and we've got nationalistic cultures that correspond with a nation. Japanese, French, whatever, Ethiopian, whatever. You got religious cultures, all sorts of cultures. But
Hmm.
I don't know specifically of any culture that revolves around personal growth, personal development, extending yourself as a person, not your external skills like learning how to play a musical instrument or being able to
Hmm.
speak in public or something like that. Those kind of skills, not skill development, but skill of being. That's a different thing, right? You can have a skill like skills of mood management, yes. The skill of discernment, yes. Those are things that are intrinsic to you, yes. And I think this is very important, because also I feel, and I have to use myself as a personal example here, that if we are focusing on character, it's almost like you could call character is what determines you as a real person. Now you could use words like soul or spirit or whatever,
Wow.
right? The deep
Wow.
self.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
I like to say the deep self. If there is in any way possible that you are going to be somewhere, right? And people, many talk about this, that maybe, you come and you live again, you get, whatever
This
your
is,
beliefs are,
sorry to
right?
interrupt you, Syl, but this is
No
very
problem.
interesting and this is very profound. So please, we will
Right.
continue right here, just after a commercial break. And
Oh,
we'll
okay.
see you guys after the break. Stay.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to the Moreness Show with Syl and Beena. And before the commercial break, Syl was talking about so profound things. And he was saying actually that instead of having skills of survival, acquire skills of thriving. So please, Syl, continue with that.
Yes. Well, thriving in a personal sense, not thriving in an external sense, right? Internally, to thrive internally. But also, I was really connecting it to building your soul, your spirit, your deep self, whatever you want to call it, your real self, right? Because that's what lasts. That's what stays with you. That's what goes. Yes. Now, take for instance, people that have memory loss. There is still something that, despite the memory loss, they still continue. Yes, they may be very different people, but you still see what comes out. Their real character is what enables them to continue, right? Now they may have been suppressing that, and after the memory loss, this gets taken out. But likewise, after people have been in a coma, things like this. And also, you get lots of instances where people talk about, that they feel like they carry over from before. Now we can say, well, maybe it's DNA and all this. Who knows how things come about? But me personally, I knew things very early on in my childhood that had nothing to do with any kind of DNA or inheritance, because it certainly wasn't things that were in the awareness or cognition or language of my parents or my ancestors, right? Just like an understanding of the concept of appropriateness. Now, I don't know where it comes from. And again, I'm not saying I believe in this or not, because I really don't. I can't say one way or the other. All I know is I knew things that I don't know where it comes from. How it is, I don't exactly know, which sort of pushes me and presses me to say, well, There's likely something, right? Likely. I don't say is likely. Just part of the way I think,
Yes.
because you want to be cautious. You don't want to assume stuff until you know, and even then,
Yes.
you have to be careful. The
And you
point
have a
here
very,
is,
very interesting concept. You have a very interesting concept,
yes,
and you always mention that memory of the future.
right. When we understand time, really understand time from a physics point of view, we understand that there is no such thing as time. Everything happens in the moment, right? So the past, present,
Yes.
future all together. We just
Yes.
unfold and unpack time and make it linear. It's very convenient. So when we really focus on our character, we are really now focusing on that which is the most important thing of everything. Because if you don't have good character, you don't have your character sorted out, you can develop and acquire all the skills and powers, and those may be, and not just talking about power in a more ordinary way, like, let's say, I don't know, whatever, you like superpowers, like in the movies, right? From the superheroes, that kind of thing. Without character, then what? Yes, I mean,
Hmm.
just because you have powers, don't actually, by the way, make you a hero.
Interesting.
A power could just make you a really bad villain. Yes, and
Oh,
actually,
yes.
to do something heroic, yeah, if you got, well, like when Superman saves the people from the burning building, is he a real hero? Not to me, really, because that's like nothing for him. You know, what's
Hmm.
the big? Where's the risk for Superman? Where's the effort? What's heroic about it? It's very simple for him to do, right? He's not in any risk. He flies up, he picks a wheel and fire, a big deal, right? It's like nothing.
Interesting.
Yeah. See,
Yes.
so understand this, right? And that's, well,
Superman
part of
fan
what
will
we
not be
do.
happy with you.
It doesn't matter. Superman though has good character. That's what makes
Yes.
Superman a good superhero. Is that he does have good character. In the case of the burning building and saving Lois Lane and all that, that case is not heroic. But he is in other cases. He does put
Yes.
himself to the fore, and he does,
Yes.
he does risk himself. He does risk everything for people, right? So he does have good character. Now, just being a good person doesn't necessarily mean good character, right? Good character is many
Hmm.
things. The point is, I'm not really, and our show today, Beena and I, we don't really want to talk about what character is so much as how character development, personal development
Yes.
connects to Moreness-Culture.
Yes.
It is the core defining characteristic of Moreness-Culture. In
Hmm.
this is what binds us together in Moreness-Culture. It is the desire, the passion, the intent to actually learn, grow, and change as individuals. And change,
Hmm.
right? Because this is what Morness is all about. Saying, yes, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm good as I am, but that doesn't mean there can't be more.
Hmm.
Yeah? All right, so Beena, just think, let's say, 5-7 years ago. Yeah?
Yes. Yes.
Was there anything wrong with you?
No. No. At least
You
not in
wanted
my understanding, of course.
No, but in any realistic sense, not, you're
No.
very honest.
No.
You weren't like, struggling, unhappy, miserable, depressed. You weren't. Not
No.
that means there's something wrong with you either, right? To
No.
me, many people can fall into things like depression, and there's nothing wrong with you. You're just caught
Yes.
up in some kind of an idea. You've got inappropriate
Yes.
immersion. We'll get
Yes.
into the understanding of that kind of psychology later, right? That's a very important topic. But again, my point is that you weren't miserable, unhappy. You weren't like
No.
causing
No.
trouble, thrown in jail, and right. You weren't like stealing or whatever, right? You weren't the criminal or anything
No.
like that, right? So
Yes.
that is Beena. It's so preposterous to think of Beena like that. But I have to use examples because sometimes people
Exactly.
do
Oh,
go on
yes.
paths that take them into ways that aren't ideal. At
Yes.
least But my point is, so you were quite fine back then. But
Yes.
would you like to go back to?
No. No. Never. Never.
Exactly. So
No.
just because we are good and fine and okay doesn't mean there isn't more. That's the whole point of
Oh,
Morness, and
yes.
why this term, this concept, this profound Morness of
Hmm.
Morness, of the conception of Morness. To understand, when you're talking about Morness, there's always more. Right? This is huge.
Yes.
So when it
Yes.
comes to personal development, it doesn't matter what you think, where you are at. there is always more to learn, to grow, to add. And yeah, now, I almost don't want to use the word learn because sadly, really, really sadly, our education system pretty much worldwide has gotten the idea that learning is something that kids have to be forced to do.
Yes.
And this is just sad because when you were a kid, Beena, and well, you still are a kid, in your heart like me, we're both kids, right? We
Yes.
love to learn, don't we?
Yes.
We love it.
Yes.
We love it. It gives us
Oh,
great joy. Yeah,
it's fun. It's joy.
right.
Yes.
And it's one of the things that we make an effort to do deliberately is to maintain our childlike side and
Yes.
simultaneously to also be sophisticated. We see this in Beena most wonderfully, right? And that childlike side, that's the side of you that loves to play. What is
Yes.
play but ideal learning?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Whenever you were playing, you were learning at the same time. Yes. And you're
Yes.
always learning. And when you play, right, show me kids that get to a level of play and they just say, well, we don't need to improve. We're just kind of fine. We're just going to cruise along. And always they're trying to improve. No matter what they do, it's just built into us. Right? It's part of us.
Yeah.
Right? It's innate. It's innate. So play and learn, actually the same thing, except play is learning joyfully.
Exactly.
Big
Wow.
difference.
Yes.
Big difference. So
Yes.
why do we want to give this up? Some idiot somewhere along the line got this idea that kids have to be forced to learn. And if they don't learn, they must be punished. Kids love to learn. All you've got to do is provide them the opportunity to learn. Yeah? And have a bit of flexibility, for heaven's sake. Kids will learn what they need to learn. I'll give you an
But
example.
I personally feel that because we miss the joy and of course fun and play from learning because we tied it up with some sort of target, some sort of ending point that you have to do this during this time, you have to do this till that,
Exactly.
and then it become a
Exactly.
stress for you.
Exactly, exactly. However, left to their own devices, people learn like crazy. So, some time back, it's not quite back in the day, but it's kind of starting to be back in the day. I played World of Warcraft. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm just amused because, World of Warcraft and video games is a relatively new thing. The gaming
Mm.
industry is like a couple of decades old, maybe, not quite 30 years, really, especially in the modern in way it is with MMOs and all that, right? So,
Yes.
anyway, it's been around for a while. Anyway, I played World of Warcraft. Now, if you don't know what World of Warcraft is, go and look it up. But most people will know what World of Warcraft is. I actually looked it up, and 100 million people have at least had some kind of a connection to World of Warcraft. Signed in, signed up, caused the name and all this, right? 100
Wow.
million. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, 100 million people. So there are a lot of people who have an idea. But anyway, I played World of Warcraft and I was really into it, played very seriously, played at a very high level and did all the raids. And I mean, like at the absolute maximum high level of that you can play. Now, to play the highest level in World of Warcraft, this is no easy matter. If anybody has played this, they're going to tell you this. You have to really, really learn a lot of things and, to be very highly skilled. All right, let me talk about the World of Warcraft here, like to be top DPS on your server and stuff like this. This requires a lot of doing, a lot of knowing, a
Mm.
lot of knowledge, a lot of
Mm.
skill, a lot of ability, yeah, lot
Mm.
of learning. This is where I'm getting at, right?
Mm.
To play any of these games, if you want to play them, you don't have to play at such a high level. Right? You can just to play it thoroughly, just to get the most out of the game. You
Mm.
basically end up going through a learning process that is the equivalent of a degree, really, right? I mean, if you but yeah, I'm getting to my point though. If you spread it out in terms of the regular time, yeah, it's
Mm.
going to take you that long, the same amount of time. But most people kind of compress the time because, especially if you're really into the game, you're playing 12 hours a day or whatever. You're not limiting it just to, half the day or whatever. Right? All right. Maybe when you're at college, it's a little more than that. You're supposed to be busy all day. But still, it's a massive education. It may not be quite the equivalent of a college degree, but it's very close. It depends on what level you're playing. here's the point that I'm getting to in a long roundabout way. I saw people learning who they were just playing the game, but they learned how to code. They learned how to write macros, because part of World of Warcraft, writing macros, right? And they learned all this most incredible stuff. Learned the law and all the stuff which, in the ordinary world, like the laws, like the history of the game, but specifically into the game, what's going behind it, what's this character's story arc, and what was the history before, all the stuff, right? There's lots and lots and lots of things to learn. I can't even mention all of them. They did this all willingly, joyfully, and eagerly, even though some of it was very difficult, like learning to write macros. Why? Because it developed their game. Yes. That's my point, right? They learned things which in ordinary life they would not ever have been interested in learning. But they did so because it helped them to play the game better. They were motivated. Wow. So they came in roundabout ways. I mean, I saw people learn language because, well, the English wasn't their language, but they wanted to play in the raids, and you come on comms together, you're all talking, right? You're on Discord or whatever, because you have to be if you're doing a raid or dungeon or whatever. You've got a squad command or a game. Wow. I forget what they call it, right? You got somebody in charge, and so you have to know what this is, and you have to know the language. So they took language courses so they could be able to be in these things, right? Now, my point is they were motivated. That's the key. Motivation. They wanted to play, so they learned things that facilitated their playing.
Wow. Wow.
When we understand this, it's huge. It's absolutely huge.
Wow, this is so interesting, Syl. Yes, we will continue. But before going there, I just want to know that. Okay, so what you are saying, we can say in other words that learning is, of course, in personal development in regards to, it is upgrading and updating. This is the crux of it.
Yes.
Okay, we will continue after the short commercial break, and Syl will share a lot of interesting stories with that. So please, Syl. And also, please stay connected. Thank you so much.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth, and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
And welcome back to the Morness Show with Syl and Beena. And Syl was sharing such an interesting story about how people learn when they have some real internal motivation connected to that.
Right.
Please, Syl, continue.
When play is your key motivation, you do all sorts of things in order to learn to play your game, or whatever your motivation is. Right? Take a musician. I just want to play my music. No, they still have to, in order to play in an orchestra, they still have to have language. They have to talk to the other people, the conductors, right? You need some basic skills which you cannot get away from. But if you are serious about your passion, you acquire those skills that you might not have an interest in. Why? Because they serve your passion. And when we understand this, we understand the key to learning, the key to real learning, the play learning. This is what is transformative. Moreness-Culture taps into that. Moreness-Culture is there where we are keen to learn about ourselves. Right? Personal development isn't just, you can't develop what you don't know. So you first have to get to know yourself, understand yourself, then you can develop it, which doesn't just mean training certain specific stuff. Developing is growing, adding, right? Developing, making it more, making it, stretching it, expanding it, enhancing it. That's really the best way. Expansion, enhancement of yourself, right? It's just being more, not more in a, oh, I'm going to be better. No, that's irrelevant, right? Any real artist, they don't compare themselves to others. They compare themselves to themselves. It's what they get pleasure out of. It's their own standards that matter, nobody else's, right? Because you're unique. How can there be anybody else? That you're unique. It's you and you alone that matters, right? And this is very, very key to Moreness-Culture. And none of this comparative mindset stuff, always comparing to other stuff, better or worse. That's hierarchy. That's superiority paradigm. No, we're in the Moreness-Paradigm, which does not do that, right? So when we're talking about personal development here, it is the joy of understanding about yourself and figuring out what works for you, what you want to do, what adds to you, what provides you with ability, what provides you with skills with which to be more competent, to be more able, to be more aware, to be more understanding, to be more discerning. And, of course, the ultimate is to be more joyful. There's no point in having all of these skills if you're not joyful. Yes? And this is where character comes in, to have integrity. If you don't have integrity, for instance, it's going to compromise your joy because your conscience is going to be compromised. If you have things that you kind of squirm about, or no, I shouldn't have done that, you got shame and guilt. Shame and guilt are major, major, major negatives when it comes to your joy. Yeah. So learn to do things that don't cause you trouble, don't cause you problems. Even if you don't feel ashamed and guilty, if you do bad stuff, people are going to want to come and get you for it. Yeah. You're just causing trouble in your life. You always have to be on the alert, look out, always be worrying about, you're looking over your shoulder, all the stuff. Yeah. It's a very tiresome way to live, and it's poor usage of energy. All that energy could be putting into feeling good about yourself, right? So impeccability is best use of energy. Don't do stupid stuff that's going to cause you trouble, in other words, right? Very simple, very, very basic, very simple. But when it comes to Moreness-Culture, if you think about it, where can you go where you're really learning to be a person?
Oh, please reiterate your question again.
Where can you go, if you really think about it, where can you actually go to learn and find people to share with, talk about, communicate, where you can go to learn to be a person?
Wow, it's a very interesting question.
To be a person, not to develop certain skills. Yes, you can go to anger management course, for instance, right? Or but those are typically particular skills. Moreness-Culture is all about that. Yes. Now, obviously, there is more specific tools like Way of Impeccability. Way of Impeccability is a life change and a self change program, which the focus is on character development. It is learning to take what you are and to really say, I'm going to acquire a set of tools with which I can transform myself. I can empower myself. I can be more. I can learn to be able, right? To have ability, to be able, yes? To be able as a person, not specific skills, but general skills, skills of competency, skills of efficiency, right? Skills of effectiveness, skills of discernment, skills of learning, skills of awareness, skills of application, especially, yes, skills of conception, and also to have an understanding of things in a bigger sense, which greatly assist us in how we live, like attunement, and we'll get into attunement another point. These are specific tools, though. But I want to get back to the main point to say This is what Moreness-Culture is all about. It is a place where you can share and learn and grow. It's all about you, the person, you. Yes, it's not about adopting a particular belief system to say you should be this way, you should be that way. No, that's for you to choose, right? I mean, the range of people who have specifically done the program, all sorts of people, all different walks of life, all different religions as well. None of them changed their religious ideas. If anything, they became more so, but they became more so appropriately because they had skills to apply and discern and choose for themselves what they want. That's the key, right? So personal development is also about developing independence of being.
Yes.
Where you are not just doing things because you're supposed to. You're doing what you really, really want to do, your inner heart and passion, right? What you intend to do. This is very key. But the key in Moreness-Culture, the key in Moreness-Culture is that you with other people who are also following their path. Now you would think, wow, isn't that a bunch of individuals? Wouldn't that be like kind of herding cats sort of a thing? No, because in Moreness-Culture, when I hear you discuss what is important to you, because we're learning to think conceptually, we learn to think in the overall, we're learning to think in from an overview perspective. I now can listen to your story, what matters to you. Doesn't matter where I'm at with my journey, yeah. But in understanding you and your journey, I get to understand journeys, and that is very helpful. And this is part of Moreness-Culture, is this language of conceptionality. We've mentioned it many times before, right? The language of conceptionality is a language that enables, facilitates, makes easy conceptionality, conceiving, which is an act of creating, an act of understanding, an act of awareness, an act of discernment, right? So when I can understand journeys, right? Because my particular path that I'm on right now is one path, but that can change, as you know. We've been on many different paths in our lives. Every time we're on, our path takes many twists and turns, which really, if you think about it, each twist and turn is like its own little mini path, just they kind of linked all together.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's all little smaller parts linked together. Those smaller parts, if I understand journey, if I understand your journey and understand journeying, it makes each new path that I'm on, the mini path, it makes it much easier for me to travel because I understand traveling, I understand journeying, I understand development, learning, growing, I understand how to deal with issues, etc., etc., etc. Right? So when we have this as part of Moreness-Culture, whenever we are sharing our journey, we're never telling, we're always sharing. There's always benefit to us hearing the journeys of others. And it's a major part of Moreness-Culture, right? Sharing and hearing others. And I mean hearing others like where they can feel heard. Like, how people say, well, and nobody ever hears me. Right? People actually, the sound comes to their ears, right? But that doesn't mean that they are hearing them, right? So to hear somebody, it's a very different thing to just letting the sound hit your eardrums, right? So that's what we want to do. And Moreness-Culture is a place where this happens, right? Where we make an effort to hear people, find out where they're coming from, where they at. Why? Because from a Moreness-Culture point of view, you could say every single other person is an alternative you.
Interesting.
What little things, how many little changes, right? Or even one little change way back in your life, and your life could have gone on a different path and you could have been that person, yes?
Yep.
So easy, right? We can see how we could have been there, right? It just takes very little sometimes. And when you understand that everybody else is a potential you, now it's like, well, the more I understand other people, the more I know what's going on there, the more I know myself. Right? So if my goal is to know myself, and through knowing myself, it's to develop myself also and get in touch with my real self, now paying attention to others really, really, really adds to this journey that we're on, to really know ourselves, to get to our capital S self, to get to our real self, right? To connect to our spirit, to get to our soul. Yeah? Make sense, Beena?
Oh yes, definitely.
And how does that matter to you?
Of course, you know that. So
I
I'm
know.
more interested. Yeah, but I'm more interested in what you were sharing about development and, of course, like okay, upgrading and updating. This is something, yes, I'm
Right.
more keen to know about. So please
So
continue.
in upgrading and updating. When I upgrade and update my operating system, my software, does it mean my software is broken?
No,
No, it
no.
was working fine, but here's an update, here's an upgrade. Yeah, it is now going to work a little better, right? And when we
Hmm.
think of ourselves in the same way, this is a profound transformation. And also to understand that, especially in way of impeccability in the program, right in the very first slide there, it is starting off with the fact that from our perspective, you're not broken.
Hmm.
You may be unaware, you may have some bad habits, whatever, but you're not broken. If you start off with the idea you're broken, we've got to fix something, and
Hmm.
that's a problem. Yeah. But when you start off
Yes.
with the fact that you're already good and you're just going to extend that, you're just going to learn how to be appropriately good rather than inappropriately good, then we've got something to work. Then we've got somewhere to go. Yes. I believe we do
Wow.
have to go.
Yes, yes, we have to go, and we'll have a short commercial break, and we will continue after that.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Mike Zoric, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zoric, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zoric has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Okay. Welcome back to the Morness Show, and Syl will continue what he was sharing. So please, Syl, continue.
I'm sharing about learning and our personal development journey and how this is what binds us in Moreness-Culture. This desire to learn, to grow, to extend ourselves, to enhance ourselves, to be more. Not just to be more, which you could say, well, that's kind of an ambition. No, to be more as an aspiration, not as an ambition. We've spoken before about the difference between ambition and aspiration. But the idea is we are Moreness-Culture. We are bound together by this innate passion for personal development, which isn't a competitive thing. It's not about being better. No, it's about getting to be who you really, really, really want to be. Yeah, who you really, really want to be, and to go beyond that. So we were talking about upgrades and updates. Yes, that's what learning and personal development is. It's much the same as upgrading your computer, updating your thing, right? It's always adding, right? It's working, it's all good, but you're adding. It's not about fixing flaws and brokenness. We have to get out of that idea, because even though things aren't working the way you want to do and you may consider yourself broken, switch the idea and say, well, okay, this isn't working, let me get a replacement. And the moment you focus on fixing, It's like you got, let's say you got debts, right? And I come and say, okay, well, I'll fix your debts for you, and I'll pay off all your debts. Then what do you have? Well, you got no debts, but you don't have any wealth either.
Exactly.
Furthermore, all your habits and tendencies and things that you were doing, all your ideas, your thoughts, your abilities that got you into debt in the first place, those are still there. So you haven't learned how to actually make money. Yeah. So me fixing your debts doesn't actually help the problem. It's just taking away the symptoms of it. Right? So you have to replace your debt-making abilities, right, with wealth-making abilities. The same way when it comes to your character. If you've got a bad temper, yeah, you can learn to undo the temper, but that doesn't mean that you've developed the ability to have joy, yeah, the ability to have patience, the ability to have tolerance. Learn those, and the temper goes away automatically. See? So we have to get out of this idea of the don't. Yeah, it comes back, we go way back into our culture. You know, especially in Western culture, 10 commandments. Don't do this, don't do that. Well, for instance, let's just take a few of those 10 commandments, right? Don't steal, don't, well, it says kill, not murder. But right, let's just take those there, right? Don't steal, don't murder, or don't kill, right? Now, let's just say you teach your kids not to steal. Just use one of them, just one as an example. Does that make your children kind and courteous and considerate and generous and joyful? No. They might not steal, but they might still be not very nice people. Yeah.
Exactly.
But if you teach your children to be kind and courteous and thoughtful and considerate and all, how are they possibly ever going to steal? It's impossible. Cannot do it, right? That's the point now. If you fix and try and be remedial, you know, don't steal, and you know, you're always threatening them if you steal this and that, doesn't really make for nice and good people necessarily. It just makes people who don't do those specific things, but they find other ways to do it. But if you teach them to be nice, then they cannot be not nice. This is the core of Moreness-Culture. We are learning how to not just be nice and good, but how to be effective, how to be competent, how to have real skills of character, so that we can't easily be bullied and pressured and manipulated and abused and all of that stuff, right? Because we are learning to be aware, we're learning to have discernment, we're learning to have strength of character, personal development, strength of character, right? You can't be pressured and manipulated and bullied and cajoled and none of the stuff, right? And that's very, very key. But it's a replacement. And this is very important. We're not fixing problems. We're going to take what you have and going to add to it, enhance it more, what you really are. Or if you say, well, you know, I learned all that stuff to be negative, I want to replace it rather. Okay, I'm going to find a whole new system, like same with the money thing, right? And the way I learned to do things was you just spend, and what I know, bad habits, I was indulgent, whatever. Okay, let me replace it with a better system. Right? So replacement is a very big part of our learning and growing when needed, right? It's not only adding and upgrading, but sometimes it's replacing. I mean, yes, like I said, your operating system, you get an upgrade. You know, is your operating system, well, usually it works, but sometimes it may get very corrupted in the file and it really isn't working. Well, then you have to get a new operating system.
Yes.
So this is the same with us as people. Sometimes you have to let go of the old and completely replace it with a new, which is a much more effective mechanism, especially if you understand the way the brain works. The brain works via emphasis. If you're emphasizing your problems, then that's what your brain is going to be focused on, and your brain is going to be trained through emphasis, literally going to be wired to be noticing and paying attention and seeing and connecting to and feeling problems and issues and flaws and that. Train your brain to see the positive, to see the good. Be aware of the negative, yes, but not as your prime focus, yeah? So we have to be very, very key. And this is what Moreness-Culture does. It is a focus on Moreness. Why it's called Moreness-Culture. And when you focus on Moreness, you're training your brain to recognize Moreness, to see Moreness, to act on Moreness, to be able to behave according to Moreness. It just comes automatically. Right? We're training. And one of the things we're doing in this is training our language. But I want to make the key case that I made again. When you say, well, what is Moreness-Culture? Moreness-Culture is a place, an environment. It is a culture of learning, growing, personal development, seeking the more, which includes, Moreness includes things like spirituality or philosophy if you want to, or just, you know, your personal skills or your abilities. Whenever you're in, if you take Well, let's just take, for instance, something very basic. Athletes, like track athletes, yes? They're
Yes.
running around the track. You say, okay, very sort of a basic things, very basic skill, you're learning to run. Take the very top athletes who get to the absolute peak, and they will tell you where they're at. It starts to become a spiritual endeavor. It's really fascinating.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, when they're already very good, but when they get to that really peak, they start to get into another dimension, and things start to take on a spiritual quality, right? And now it's a whole different ball game when you get to that. In other words, my point is, take any activity and take it to its end, and it's going to lead you into moreness, like spiritual moreness or a metaphysical moreness, whatever you want to call it, right? I prefer the term moreness because spiritual has so many baggage terms to it. The term has unfortunately become abused somewhat, right? And distorted. But when you understand this from a monist point of view, any activity taken all the way, when your integrity, your earnestness is there, and you're doing it for the right reasons, you pursue, it's a passion, it's driving you to get to the ultimate, then you start to get into transcendence. It stops being about running. It becomes something else, right? In order to be the absolute best runner, you need to develop your character.
Wow.
Take gaming. Yes, you're playing together in a group. Very simple thing, right? You're doing a raid, and you've got your raid commander, and somebody's telling you do this, do that. Don't stand in the fire. It's the great joke you can look up. Don't stand in the fire, right? And you need to have awareness to not stand in the fire. Literally, okay, you're playing a game, there's a spell fire on there, and if you stand in the fire, you get burnt, you get injured, and you could die, right? The healers can heal you, but still, people they get tunnel vision, and they don't notice that they're standing in the fire. That's awareness. See, tunnel vision is lack of awareness, right? And also your skills. But if you don't have patience, and those raids, sometimes you do it, and then the raid collapses, it crashes, and you wipe. That's what it's called. Everybody dies. In other words, you're going to start all over again. And you do this over and over and over again sometimes to get where you go. 10, 20, 30, 40 times. I don't know how many times, huh? But if you don't have patience, you're never going to progress in that rate, right? If you can't work with people, if you're irritable, you get crotchety, you're annoyed, you just get kicked from the raid. Nobody wants to play with the jackasses that are all rude and aggressive and nasty in that raid. They just get kicked. So you have to learn character skills in order to play. Yeah?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And of
there
course,
are exceptions. There are exceptions that people are very skilled people. They, you can see it sometimes that are jackasses, and they get made allowance for. But in the end of the day, it doesn't. You pay a high price for that. Yes, and yes, all right. If you've got exceptional skills, you may get away with it, but only for so long. What do those people do when they can't play? Like a soccer or football player or whatever, any sports player what happens when they can't compete anymore? Then nobody wants to know them. Because they're a jackass, you see? Character. Yeah. In the end, it always comes back to character. Yeah. Particular skills and abilities may give you a benefit at some point, but not in the end. Moreness-Culture is all about real value, right? The real value of character. Yes, Beena?
Wow. Yes. Wow. That was great. Thank you so much, Syl. Thank you for sharing, of course, some stories. And the athlete's story was really interesting for me, that at some point when you get out of those just acquiring skills of doing something, then you go beyond that, and then you acquire moreness. This is very interesting.
Very profound.
Okay. Yes. And okay, so we will see you. This is the end of our program, and we will see you guys next week. Same time, same channel. Please stay connected.
All right.
Bye for now.
This has been The Morness Show with Syl and Beena. Tune in each week as they focus on bringing joy and peace of being to us all. Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold, Brave TV network. Powered by B2 Studios.